Today's program is about how to be successful in the audio business. I would like to announce a substitution. We have a new moderator for the panel, the inimitable Jerry Palumbo, who is perhaps the finest A1 in all of live sports broadcast audio. So without further ado, Jerry Palumbo will announce the rest of the panel. Please enjoy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this sudden shift. I was actually going to be sitting with these fine ladies over here. Leslie had a slight allergic reaction to some wheat. She's okay. She's out front getting some antihistamine and some treatment. So the rigmarole up here is that me trying to work through her PowerPoint presentation to make sure I cover all the points that she was going to cover. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. We're going to get this party started. We've got some really powerful people up here, some movers and shakers, and I can't wait for you to meet them. What does it take to have a successful career in audio? Well, first of all, Leslie Gaston-Bird, who is not here, she's the governor-at-large of the Audio Engineering Society. She co-chairs the SoundGirls.org UK chapter. She's the owner of Mixed Messiah Productions, and she's the author of the new book called Women in Audio. Yeah, big hand for her. She's a mover and shaker. She's making things happen. I happen to be Jerry Palumbo. I am a Broadcast A1 sports mixer. I'm usually the oddball because most people come from the music side, and I did that years ago. But we can talk about that at another time. The first person I'm going to talk about, I'm going to have her raise her hand because we're going out of order here, is Miss Michelle Pettinato. She's a co-founder of SoundGirls. She's a front-of-house engineer with a very long professional career in concert sound. Spans more than 25 years. She's been a front-of-house engineer for such a diverse roster of musical acts, including Elvis Costello, Styx, Mr. Big, Goo Goo Dolls, and many, many more. She's a co-founder of SoundGirls and is the creator and owner of Mix Music Live, or Mixing Music Live. Do correct me. Next up is the other co-founder of SoundGirls, Miss Kerry Keys. I might be a slide ahead, you guys. Am I a slide ahead? Am I a slide behind? Okay. Well, Michelle, I already introduced her, so we're going to move on to Kerry. Kerry is the other half of the Live Sound Concert Sound. She is a monitor engineer and the executive director of SoundGirls. She has been the monitor engineer for Pearl Jam, Eddie Vedder, Soundgarden, Fugazi, Sonic Youth, Neil Young, Red Hot Chili Peppers, just to name a few. Kerry is our fearless leader, and Kerry is the reason that SoundGirl, her along with Michelle, actually exist. Miss Piper Payne, another trailblazer right there. Raise your hand, lady. Piper is a mastering engineer. She lives for quality and equality in audio. Piper is a mastering engineer at Infrasonic Mastering, based in Oakland and in Nashville, where she works on albums for independent artists and major labels. Piper is a technologist for the vinyl industry, finding new ways to fix old problems. She is a trustee of the Recording Academy and serves on the P&E Wing Steering Committee. Piper is also a governor of AES, and she is an active member of the Women's Audio Mission and serves on the board of SoundGirls. Please welcome Piper. Sorry if I have to squint to read.
You're doing good.
Catherine Vericolli. Here's another amenable force. Catherine is the owner, engineer, and manager at 513 in Tempe, Arizona. Catherine is more or less an analog purist. She also writes for various pro audio publications and taught classes at the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences known as CRAS. Catherine is an active member of SoundGirls. Please welcome Catherine. Miss Jessica Thompson, Grammy-nominated mastering and restoration engineer and audio preservationist working in the San Francisco Bay Area. Her remaster of Errol Gardner's sonic live performance, the complete concert by the Sea on Sony Legacy Records, was nominated for the Best Historical Album Grammy of 2019. She has remastered, restored, revived historical recordings from the Boston Line. Sorry, I can't see. I think Cafe Lena, please correct me if I can't see it. Woody Guthrie, Errol Garner, and Barbara Dane. And the Ash Grove and the Newport Jazz and Folk Festival. She archives and does many, many more projects. Please welcome Jessica Thompson.
Yeah.
Forgive me for I can't see, and I didn't write it. So, Miss April Tucker, please raise your hand. April Tucker is a re-recording mixer and sound supervisor, effects artist. April works in Los Angeles in post-production sound for films, television, new media, and marketing and advertising. She has performed nearly every role in the process from the bottom up. She started as a PA in the studio and worked her way to a re-recording mixer, doing everything from Foley, ADR, sound editing. Along the way, she has done it all. April is an active member of SoundGirls and is a SoundGirls representative to IPAS, a national organization of individuals seeking craft and technological careers in the entertainment industry. April can be contacted through her website at www.proaudiogirl.com. Okay, did I catch everybody? Okay, starting out to have a successful career in audio, first of all, you have to talk about education, whether it's formal education or on the job. How do you look for work, and the first job jitters. Survival, making mistakes, encountering obstacles, harassment, and competition. What I'd like to do on those two different topics is let you girls take the floor and talk about what it took for you guys to get started. How many of you had formal education? How many of you had on the job? And what did you do to advance your career? And what obstacles did you run into? Start with, how about you, Jessica? How did you get started in the business?
I was a radio DJ.
Oh, interesting.
And straight out of college, got a job at a radio station
What
on the
was your
air.
handle?
Yeah, what was your handle?
I'm DJ Jessica. Sorry, I didn't
Jessica.
have but my show was called Yellow Number 5.
Nice.
But I got a job at a radio station straight out of college and pretty quickly discovered I liked the production side. Went back to school, got an internship, worked really hard, worked really long hours, burned out, got another job, and about 20 years later realized that I had been making a living in audio that whole time. So I now accept that I am an audio engineer by profession.
Okay, so you jumped on the other side of the glass, as
I
they
did.
say. You went from being a creative to actually being a techie and on the production side.
And I will say about 99% of what I learned that I use in my job today, on the job.
Okay. How about anybody else? Anybody else have any formal training that actually started as an intern? I'd like to hear about it. How about you, Piper?
Yeah, I have formal education in audio engineering through the University of Michigan, and I did my grad studies in Norway, all mostly focused in classical recording. And so when I was coming into grad school, I kind of got a job in a mastering studio. I had no idea what that was about. I actually started in archival. Originally, that was my first big kid job in audio, and I kind of fell in love with mastering because I could be really technical and focused on quality the same way I was in classical recording, but I like all kinds of music, and some people up here would probably say I have really bad taste in music, but
That's not very fair of you to say.
so in mastering I could work on pretty much everything, and I totally fell in love with it right from the beginning. I actually marking PQ codes, which is super nerdy and very integral to mastering. That was what I really, really wanted to do forever. And then I ended up getting to work on audio parts too.
Can you talk about what those codes are for people who don't know what that is?
Yeah, that's basically the start and end markers for the CD. But you can come and ask me any sort of nerdy mastering questions you want to toward the end. The thing that I learned that was the most useful for me moving forward with my career was doing a lot of critical listening to a lot of music that I probably didn't really like that much, but it really taught me a lot of discipline and how to find what quality music and quality recordings are, so that then when it came time 4+ years later down the road, after being a full-time mastering assistant, when I finally got the chance to master my first record, because that's how long it took me to actually start mastering records and accepting money for doing so. I knew what a quality record in that genre was supposed to sound like. And so then the tools to get there were just EQ and compression and a little bit of limiting and a little bit of stereo manipulation. And that part was easy. But the hard part, and you'll learn this, I think probably everybody on this panel will say that the hard part is knowing what the quality is and what you're going for. The actual tools to get there are not that difficult to learn.
Anyone else?
I'll just
start out with any?
I'll be shorter
There we go.
than Piper. I am shorter than Piper physically. And she has interesting music taste. I wouldn't say it's bad. It's just different. Anyway, my name. Well, you know my name. My name's Catherine. I started out collecting records. That was really my love for anything musical. And I thought, well, maybe I'll be a musician. And then I was really, really, really bad at that. So I decided, okay, well, maybe I'll learn music theory. So then I went and took a bunch of music theory classes, and I was really bad at that too. Because it's basically math. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll go check out this school called the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences, which is in Arizona. Anybody? Any students? Yeah, anybody know?
I'm not
Okay.
a student, but
Yeah, there's like tons of students everywhere. So, and then I was like, okay, this is cool. So I want to do this. So that was my formal education, which I think, regardless of any formal education you get, is really not the most important education.
Right.
It's going to be on-the-job education.
Yes.
So instead of going and getting a job in the industry, which is what I would recommend doing, I was like, I'll build a studio, open up my own studio. It sounds like a really good idea.
Yeah, great idea.
Super awesome idea. It's very expensive. Which in a lot of ways at the time it was. And I loved it. And so I've had my studio for almost, 15 years now? In a really tough market, so that's a whole nother panel. We won't get into that. So yeah, I'm a recording engineer. A lot of the stuff that I know, besides fundamental stuff from school, is self-taught. Not a lot of mentors running around in Arizona, so a lot of self-taught stuff. Going out, meeting people, getting involved, learning stuff. And then now a lot of what I do is like archiving stuff. So I'm in 2 different cities, and so I'm doing moving the opposite direction of Piper, which is starting and recording and going into archiving. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Michelle, how did you get your start in this business?
I started out, I went to 2 different technical schools for audio engineering, and my original idea was to be a recording engineer. While I was in school, I fell in love with live sound, and after school, I started working at a local sound company. I mixed local bands. I worked at a bunch of nightclubs. I worked as a stagehand. I basically just took every job I could in audio and live sound until I landed my first tour. But I spent probably about 5-6 years just, slugging it out in clubs and, the AV department of an entertainment complex, working as a stagehand, doing whatever I could and until I got on tour. And the school was great. It gave me a good foundation of the theory and the fundamentals of audio, but the skills you really have to learn by doing it. There's just no other way.
It's seat time. You can learn the signal flow, I think, in a formal education, which I think is the foundation, but everything else is trial by fire.
Right.
I think most of us can say that. April, how did you get started? And tell us a little bit about you, maybe some mistakes, maybe some obstacles you ran into. How did you learn to get to where you are?
So I have 2 degrees. I went to the University of Hartford for my bachelor's and then McGill University for my master's. And kind of like Piper, my area of expertise and interest was classical music. I interned at a classical music festival over the summer, and I was like, I hate this. I don't think I can do it. So I'm like, I'm going to move to LA. I moved to LA. I knew 3 people. I had 2 months of living expenses, and I'm going, how the hell am I supposed to make a career out of I'm literally starting from nothing? I put an ad on Craigslist where I met my husband, but I met
related or unrelated? Like, are these two separate ads?
Same ad. It was. I was just like, I just need to. I'm like, I just need to meet people. Like, literally, I just need to like connect with people, which I'm sure a lot of people I hear see nods. Why can't I say that? Heads nodding, right? So, like, I literally was like, I just want to meet people. So I made a goal where it was like every day or 5 days a week, I'm just going to go meet someone, and I would ask someone to out for coffee, like, because I got a lot of responses from people in the audio industry. So that's how I met my husband, is because like we had a mutual friend, and I figured, okay, he can, he's probably decent because I know where he went to school and he knows Pete. But from there, my first handful of jobs, and this kind of mirrors what you all are saying. Like, again, I just had to pay the bills, right? So someone wants me to catalog a music library. Okay. Record a classical music concert at the local college. Okay. $100 to assist me on this gig. You got it. I'm there. Like, pretty much for me at the beginning, it was about money and survival. And I was saying this to someone earlier that just because you're not mixing or engineering 100% of the time doesn't mean that you are not a mixer, or that you're not working towards being a mixer. And the other element for me is I moved to LA to do music. That was, it's 6 years of school to do music. I hated posts in my classes. And when I finally got to that point where I'm like, okay, I need to find a full-time job, I got an offer to work at a music studio and a post-production studio same week. And I asked a bunch of people for advice, and across the board, everyone said, go work for the post-production studio. You're going to have, it's going to be easier to find work. The music industry in LA at that time was starting to be more scattered. And the best advice I got was from a scoring mixer who said, just go learn post, just go learn how to do it. Like, find a studio, learn everything you can, and you can always come back to music. And that's pretty much what I did. I've spent 15 years working in post-production, but then, I'm doing a gig next week, a music gig for a friend of mine from college. So it's like, as your friends are growing in their careers, the opportunities that you get grow. And I think that's hard to see early on, where it's just like, you're thinking, how do I pay the bills? And I'm just sitting here assisting someone and, taking out I was literally taking out the trash and getting lunches. And I'm going, I have a master's degree. Why am I not mixing? It just takes time and patience, and like, you just gotta do what you have to do to survive and keep working towards it.
Timing and opportunity.
Yep.
You just have to keep your eye on the ball if that's what you want to do. Ms. Karrie, tell us how you got started in this crazy business.
By jumping on opportunities that I didn't even know existed. I went to school after I had already started working and ended up dropping out because I was on tour by the time we got to the live sound portion. When I was 17, I met my ex, my mentor, the father of my children, at a Black Flag show. I had no idea what he did, but I knew I wanted to do what he was doing. And he taught me everything he knew, and then I taught him what I knew, and we built a company. And
you want to tell us what that company's name is, in case people don't know?
Yeah, we built a sound company called Rat Sound Systems, based out of LA. It's now a national, international sound system provider. But at that time, the opportunity to do that also required living in our warehouse without hot water for about 3 or 4 years. As we were hustling, every dime we made, we went in and bought new gear with it.
Yeah.
So we weren't paying ourselves. We were working, and we were building this company. And it was jumping at every opportunity that presented itself.
Yeah, the sacrifices you make to launch a company.
Yeah.
It's not all what everyone thinks it is.
No.
It doesn't start off that way.
No.
Well, I'm going to jump around a little bit here. So some things I'd like to talk about. We're just going to open it up. What are some of the mistakes you guys have run into that you have done out in the field? How were they handled? How did you handle them, including sexual harassment, if there's any of that, which we know that there's some of that. What are some of the rewards that you've seen in your job setting? So the mistakes that you've made out in the field and on the job, how did you overcome those? And what were the rewards for sticking in this career?
I'd be curious if you all had the same experience I did, which I had a huge amount of self-doubt at the beginning, and I would always question,
I still have a huge amount of self-doubt. It never goes away.
I don't doubt myself. No.
Piper has no doubt. That's why it was so annoying.
But especially
I'm just joking.
especially early on, it would like second guessing, like, is this person saying this thing to me because I'm a woman? Or are they saying it to me because I look young? I mean, like, really, I looked like I was 16 when I was 24. Like,
I got a lot of that too because I looked very young
Yeah.
and I couldn't tell if people were talking to me because they thought I was new and I didn't know anything. I had people who knew less than me trying to tell me how to do things
Yeah.
that that's just such the wrong way to do it. You know?
Yeah.
And where it was coming from, whether it was them or me or what, but yeah. that happened a lot.
How did you handle that when that came up?
I actually had a situation where I was in a venue that I had done 3 times prior that same year with the same A1 as the house audio tech. And I went in, there was a young guy, and he was trying to tell me how to use the console, which I had been touring with for years. And all day long, and I kept telling him, like, hey, I got a handle on it. I was, polite, just letting himself dig a hole, and I just wanted to see how far it would go. So he's, all day long trying to tell me how to do everything, which I was just like, yeah, I got it. And it was ironic because as soon as the show started, he all of a sudden was like, oh my God, how do you get that kick drum sound? How do you get that vocal sound? What are you doing on this? What do you, like, dude, I told you I had it, and then now he's asking me, well, what are you using for this? Do you mind if I copy your EQ settings? Do you mind if I do this? It's kind of like just, you be professional because you have to work with these people.
Right.
And sometimes they're just trying to be helpful. It comes off as condescending or whatever. You don't know where it's coming from. Obviously, if someone's being completely rude and condescending and it's obvious, I'll shut it down because you kind of teach people how to treat you. But, in the end, you all have to work on the same team. You're all there for the same reason and the same goal. So, you be professional and deal with it until it becomes an issue. If it does become an issue where it's a problem, then, shut it down. But it's usually I just kind of just let it slide off my back.
I want to just talk about something really fast, which is we talk a lot about harassment in the industry on panels like this. And we keep doing panels like this, which I think is important. But I think it's also important to talk about how we react to those things, which is really the most important thing, right? Because it's going to happen. And I think it happens to everybody. It happens to men, it happens to young people, it happens to women, it happens to, people of color, people who are older, people who are, it's not just this. And so I think it's important that, when that does happen, or at least, I don't know, maybe I was just like really derpy when I was younger and just didn't notice or just didn't.
Derpy.
Yeah, sorry, that's a word. That's like, I was just really focused and really busy. And so when I ran into something like that, I didn't really realize it until like much later on. I was like, oh, that guy was a dick.
yeah, I think the busy
You know what I
part.
mean? Like, I didn't. Yeah,
if you're
so
just doing your job, you weren't really thinking about how people are treating you.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you have a job to do, and if you do it well, that's gonna. I mean, hopefully, we would think that. I mean, in my experience, that's gonna outweigh somebody who doesn't think that you know what you're doing. Right. And then they just dig a hole for themselves, which that's the thing that happens, especially when I go to Guitar Center. So, but yeah, I think it's important to address that how we as a minority, I guess, even though there's so many women in this audience, so I think that's definitely changing. How we
Has anyone here
react to that.
actually experienced that as a professional?
Up here or in the, out in the
In the audience?
Sorry about that.
Or it could be male or female.
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter.
Yeah, we all
It's
have.
like where you're,
Yeah.
where people go, hey, and I
Lenice.
think they
Lenice
wanna
is
help.
like, I've been experiencing that since 1970.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Of course, she wasn't born yet, of course. Lenice,
Well, no.
Lenice Bent, raise your hand back there.
You all
Lenice
should
Bent.
know
Lenice
Lenice.
has
Yeah.
made
You wanna talk
many
about-
records.
Pioneer.
Pioneer right there. Breakfast in America. Steely
Anyway.
Dan. That's another panel.
But I don't know. I think it's just something to think about, right? How we react to that. Stay positive
Yeah.
as best you can. Keep working, and at the end of the day, that's it.
And get through the gig.
Yeah,
I mean,
get
I
through
think
the
I think that's the big thing. Is like
Yeah.
whether it's
How you conduct yourself.
harassment or whether it's just someone being an asshole. At the end of the day, you still have to get the gig done, and that's hard. And it's one of the hard things about this industry. And I think the reason that some people end up walking away is it's just like, man, this client is just not being nice,
Yeah.
and you have no idea. Like, it may not have anything to do with you.
Yeah. And you don't have to work with
usually
them
it
again.
doesn't
That's okay.
have anything to do with
You
you.
know?
I think a lot of times it's them. It's their whether their issue is that they don't want to work with a woman or this or that or whatever, or they just don't know how to talk to people because they're just socially inept or they have no tact. A lot of times it's usually always about them and nothing to do with you.
I want to talk about you asked about mistakes early
Yes.
on, and I mean, I'm sure we've all made a ton of mistakes. Luckily, I got in with a mentor early enough, and somebody who really cared about me. And I know, Kerry, you had something similar, where this person had been in the industry for a long time already and had already made a ton of very big mistakes and cared about me enough to try and steer me away from making those myself. And so I would say a biggest piece of advice I have for you, other than train your ears and learn critical listening skills, is get yourself a mentor. Find somebody who has done it before, has made those mistakes, and that cares about you and that can help you navigate those things. I've definitely made plenty of mistakes myself, but I would have made way more if I didn't have somebody else to say, hey, don't do that, or
You would
do
have
it
been
this way.
me.
And what do you think is the importance of that when you're self-taught? Because I think like now people coming into the industry are spending a lot more time on their own than say maybe we did back then.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think the thing is now, the internet is so much more awesome than it was when we were coming up, and the ability to find somebody who is doing what you want to do and at least either pick their brain or call them, do an informational interview. You can access anybody in the world now, and most people are really, really cool and will give you an hour of their time to talk to you about things that they've done that have been successful. I'd say, like, in general, try and just keep it positive, and don't waste anybody's time. But most people are very, very generous with their time and their advice.
And you got to go find them.
Yeah, you have to find them. You can't wait for them to come
I
get
came
you.
up in Arizona, and then I was like, okay, well, now I want to get into like archiving. That doesn't happen in Arizona, so I went and found Jessica Thompson.
We hung out.
Which was technically my first mentor in a way. Sorry, it's like a huge responsibility. Gross.
I'd say the same thing. I think
Yeah, right.
I kind of think of you as a mentor in a different.
Oh, nice.
area.
So it goes both
That's
ways.
weird.
But
Right.
I want to say
You gotta
something
go
about
find 'em.
the mistakes thing too. We all make mistakes, and the engineering mistakes that you will make, you own them and you fix them, and you move on. There are bigger mistakes that we make too, such as maybe taking a job that's not a good fit for you, and then the thing that can be hardest to do is to walk away from that. But we've probably all done it too, but I don't know anyone who walked away from an unhealthy job or unhealthy work situation who didn't find something better. It's like no one walks away from a bad situation. It's like, you know what? I really miss when I would like have a panic attack in my car before going to the studio because it was such a toxic place. Miss that. I don't miss that. I don't. And I'm glad I walked away from some situations that were not great and cried a lot and spent many years building something that is much, much better.
I remember my first gig in LA. I was actually working for a recording truck, maybe a second gig, and the engineer and the producer got in a huge fight, and they kind of reconciled it by blaming me for something that wasn't my fault. And I remember just being devastated because I was like, I am going to have a horrible reputation for being, fired by these two. And the funny thing is, like, no one ever learned about it. Like, it was only if I said something that other people would know. And I saw them 10 years later, and they couldn't even remember who I was. So.
And you really have to kind of set your own goals against yourself. I know that's like a really hard thing to do, in it, like for any human being, but especially I think for maybe a lot of us, right? It's not really about like what other people think. It's about like, oh, I walked away from that shitty gig because I was being treated like crap. Like, okay, so maybe I don't have a job for a couple weeks, but I'm better off for it.
I'm going to jump in here because I was supposed to be sitting with these girls, and one of the things that I do as a mixer, because all of us have really, really stressful jobs. You're kind of under the gun. There's a lot of adrenaline going on. There's a lot of emotion, and you're under fire. But that's part of the beauty of the job. But the reason we're all mixers and the reason that we're doing these things is because we have a passion for it. So some of these difficult jobs that I would go into, I would go when we know we're going to have a bad day. The truck's not working right or something's not working right. I would try to psych myself in the other direction instead of going, what could go wrong with this today? And go, what is the passion that brings me to this gig in the first place?
Yeah.
And try to look for that passion in that day. But if things really go bad, I have this saying, and I swear I live my life by it, and it's just like what you said. There will always be better gigs. There'll always be something better waiting for you. That I truly believe that you need to find your tribe, and that you go where you are celebrated and not where you are tolerated.
So true.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay? That's how I, not everyone can do that, but sometimes I've had to make those decisions and walk away from a good gig because it was too toxic.
So
it's just too toxic.
when you mentioned the tribe, that's a huge. I mean, you can use any word, tribe. But
Right.
you know, in the audience right now, I see like a good number of people who are like family to me, that are sitting here watching this panel. Not like they need to be, but they're here supporting us and me. You know, some of my very best friends in the world are here at the show.
It's because I told them that
And they're on this panel.
You do the open bar later.
Shit.
You all
Lies.
don't know these two have history. Catherine and Piper know each other really well.
We do, sort of. It doesn't. That's not important. But
Yeah,
the
but it's
point is that,
funny.
like, yeah, the biggest success that I have in this business, to be completely honest with you, is the people I know.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's not about money. I mean, if you guys want to make money, there's, I think the NAB conference is just across the way. And that was a really bad joke. Nobody got
It
that
was
joke.
funny. I thought it was really funny.
He got that joke. Cool. All right. My point is that, guys, it's like, you know, big money is not the goal here. It's doing what you love and meeting really great people.
What's that old saying? If you want to make $1 million in the audio industry, you start with $5
Yeah.
$5?
million.
Yeah.
So another thing, like I just went back recently and listened to some of my college recordings. I was digitizing stuff, and I was like, "Wow, this
What a-
stuff sucks."
You're a masochist.
Like I thought I would. Well, I was trying to get off. I want to get rid of the CDs, right? But I was like, man, this at the time I thought this was like really amazing, right? So I think you always have growth too in terms of your skills. So you can't put pressure on yourself to be like, you know, this is gonna like. I remember the first movie I did. A friend said to me, "April, this is not the last movie you're ever going to work on. Like you don't need to put this much pressure on yourself for it to be perfect, or you know, it's still a learning experience, even if it's something you've been doing for 10 years or 20 years."
And after every record I do still, I want to go back and redo it because I learned something during that process. I am never happy. So if you want to never be happy with the
do
quality
this.
of your work,
Agreed.
Well, I think when you were talking about the passion, that is key to being successful in this industry. Is if you don't have a passion for what you're doing, you're never going to make it, because the music industry and the entertainment industry in general is not a 9-to-5 job. There are huge sacrifices that we have to make. You know, you work long, crazy hours in sometimes, you know, insane conditions. And if you don't have a sincere passion for what you're doing, you're never going to last. You're just not going to work through all of that to get to where you feel successful. And even when you are successful, you still have those crazy days where, you know, you're working, you've been awake for 36 hours, you've been traveling for 3 days, you know, you've been eating terrible food, and you know, you're trying to get this project done. It all is driven by passion. You know, passion is what gets you through those beginning years when you're not doing your dream job and you're just struggling, and you just get out of school or you just get started and you're trying to find a job, and you're not doing what you want, but you know that somewhere down the road, this job is going to lead to the next one, that one's going to lead to the next one, and eventually you're going to be where you want to be. But it takes time and patience and persistence. And the thing that gets you through all of that is having a passion for what you do.
I concur. Well,
Yeah.
if you ladies are open to it, I think we're going to open the floor to some questions for the next 4 or 5 minutes and close this thing out. Anyone have any questions? We got a gentleman right here in the green shirt. He's got a.
And if
please
you don't
eat
get
the mic.
if you don't get to ask your question,
Eat
I mean,
that mic.
we're
Yeah.
all from different
Yeah.
disciplines. You can get a hold of us very easily by using the internet.
Yeah. Or come talk to us.
Or you can
after.
just come hang. We'll stand out here. For a minute.
Catherine's buying drinks at the bar.
I'm not buying drinks at the bar. Piper's actually buying drinks at the bar.
Open bar,
I have
right?
Piper's card, so
Got
she
that
doesn't actually
mastering
know
money.
that I paid for this whole trip with that card. She doesn't know yet.
Excellent.
Hi.
Hi.
So,
What's your name?
I'm Awen.
Hi.
I'm a student. I'm a senior in audio and stuff, and I'm trying to go like into the industry. And you guys touched on this a little bit, and it's sort of like a weird personal kind of question. But like, how do you deal with like? I feel like every time I network, especially with men, like it tends to end up with them thinking that I want to date them, or that like you're flirting. But like with totally normal kindnesses that usually are just interpreted as like the usual things you would do to network with a person. And it can be really demoralizing because I think that like there's going to be like a connection there that's going to lead to something in a career, and then it just turns out that they think I want to date. So like, how do you?
Can I ask you how you're? I'm sorry.
No, you good.
Can I ask you how you're doing? Like, what is your method? Like,
So-
how are you reaching out? What are your avenues for them?
That's fair. Well, since I'm a student, I do a lot of like free work, and like people will come into like I'm in a recording studio a lot of the time, so like I'll bring artists in, and I just sort of like talk to them, or just I'm a really like warm person, so I think it tends to get interpreted that way.
Well, don't change that.
Don't not do
Yeah.
that. Just be
I know,
you.
yeah. But yeah, so I guess just like talking with them, getting to know them.
Well, I think that something that you should know right now is that this is not your problem.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
This is their problem.
Yeah.
Which, as soon as you have that mindset, then it becomes a little easier to dismiss. And I don't mean dismissive like, oh, I shouldn't dismiss harassment, because you should never do that. But it's persistence, and you're going to find your people. And I'm assuming that not every encounter has been that way, not every single one.
Not every one, but it really has gotten to the point where I feel like more often than not, it
Right.
ends up just with them like trying to message you on Instagram at 1 a.m.
And
the
where are
next
you?
day.
Where in the country are you?
I go to school in DC,
Washington D.C.
Washington DC.
Okay. So are there any other women in audio in the room sitting in here right now? They're close to Washington D.C. Anybody? Where are you? I can't hear you, but that's okay. Anyway, my point is that you know, find some women. It's a powerful thing, and then just keep doing what you're doing.
But I think you also have to be direct and
Yeah.
set boundaries.
Yeah.
As in,
Yeah.
if you're like, if I am I had to cold contact a gazillion people, right? So it's like, hi Ben, I really, I like your work. I would like to meet you for coffee to talk to you more about your career. Like Steve
Yeah.
made it very specific about, this is who I am, this is what I'd like from you, and this is what I am. You know, this is the confines of it. And yeah, you might meet, and there might be times where you feel attraction, or you might feel that someone, and that happens on the job too. I mean, like even today, I was at a booth and I kind of felt like, okay, this young girl wants to sit with us, right? Not that I'm not young anymore, but I think that's a big part of it, is just being of setting those boundaries at first. And I don't think you necessarily need to, if you feel it, to say, like, you don't need to say like I'm uncomfortable or anything like that. I think you just have to bring it back to those boundaries of like, let's make sure we are only talking about work. Let's not talk about our personal lives. Let's not talk about
I mean, it happens to all of us. I mean, even when I was presenting exactly as I am now, I used to have, there were a couple of clients, one in particular, that he actually booked a mastering session and paid for it and didn't bring a record. He just wanted to sit and hang out with me. And I was just like, nope, get out of here.
Yeah.
One thing you could do is find a friend, somebody who can be around with you for those, at least those first couple of meetings. That's what I had to start doing with that person. And I kind of learned to do that. You know, having a male business partner definitely helped. But that doesn't mean that you should need to do that. And, you know, Catherine's totally right. It's not your problem. And you will find professional people that just want to make records with you and aren't going to try to date you. It's not going to happen. It's not going to be that way forever. But right now, when you're in that sort of like trade or barter gig economy kind of thing that you're probably in school, it may happen. And that really, really sucks. I would say, you know, if you ever feel uncomfortable, go get your professor. Maybe have your professor do those first couple of meetings for things like that in the studio. That way you can at least have a little bit of help setting that boundary.
Yeah, and come see me when this is done.
Yeah.
Give them my number.
Give them
I'll screen them for you.
Any other questions out there for the panel? Back here?
Hi,
Hi. What's your name?
Ethan.
Hi, Ethan.
Hi. I recently finished a degree in audio, and I'm trying to break into the business. Thank you. For all of you, some of you mentioned that you did a lot of cold calls and cold emails and things like that to get into positions, or at least get interviews for positions. For those cold calls, did you happen to know people who knew the people you were cold calling? Was it mostly that, or was it just straight up cold calls?
I never contact anyone without a, say, oh, I got your name from Kerry. And the thing is, that has gotten me that has gotten me jobs when people haven't even asked me for a resume. They're just like, oh, you know Piper? Great. It's amazing. And I also tend to email people as opposed to call, because everyone's busy. You don't know if you're catching them on a good day. But I always just send an introduction email. Hey, I'd love to meet with you. I got your name from so and so. And then the cool thing about it is, like, let's say you meet with 5 people. Well, if you don't go to those people like, hey, help me find a job, you're just like, hey, I want to get to know you. Well, you kind of start to be friends. That's really what networking is. It's just like making friends. And then now some of those people are probably going to offer to help you. So they'll say, hey, let me go ask my friends. I'll go ask my friends. So suddenly you've got 5 people, 6 people, including yourself, looking for work. It's not just on you.
I have a spiel for this. So, first of all, do you have an email address that is your name, your first name, your last name at Gmail or
Yes.
something like that, or your first name, last name.com? First of all, if anybody has like Beanie Babies 2001 at AOL.com as your email address.
If you have an AOL email address, get out of here.
Either way,
You're all
look,
fired.
here's the thing. Lenise, you can have it. You deserve that one.
Well, you can have whatever you want.
So okay. When I early on in my career, when I was doing a lot of classical recording, a lot of location recording, I would need assistance sometimes last minute. Like my assistant was sick or not available or whatever. If I needed somebody that I had met like out networking or at an AES or something, and I knew that they were in town and new and maybe needed a job, first thing I would do is go into my Gmail. I would type first name and see what comes up, or last name and see what comes up, because I remember people's names. So if I couldn't find them by doing a quick search in my contacts, if they had sent me an email, or if maybe I had just remembered who they were, if I couldn't Google them or find them in my email very quickly, I would move on to the next person. Okay. There are so many of them that were like, I really wanted to work with you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I couldn't find you in my email. So that second, make sure that you sign every single email that you are going to want a job from somebody. Give them your phone number, because I don't have time to email people. I don't have time for novels. I will get on the phone. I'll say, who are you? Tell me about you. Maybe we can work together, or whatever. Obviously for mastering now, I'm not doing that anymore, but that's what, for the first several years, that's how I would find helpers and find people. And most of the folks that I worked with early on are all working full-time in pro audio from connections that they made through going out on gigs with me. So that have a very, very fast elevator pitch. This is who I am. This is what I do. If you ever need anything or need those skills, here's my contact info, and this is how you can reach me anytime. That got me more jobs than I could count. Early on in AES, I was just pounding the pavement at conventions and going to every single networking event I could, and I got business cards from people. I had them always on me, but I would always ask people for their business cards first, because they like to talk about themselves. Don't ever walk up to them and say, can I give you a business card, or can I give you my number? Say, do you have one? And if they don't, then you say, can I give you one? That always works better. And then when somebody gives you their business card, like the cards that I have in my pocket, they cost like 20 cents a piece. I'm not giving them out for my health. I'm not giving them out because I just have nothing better to do than print business cards. Use the business card. Send me an email. Tell me what you're doing. Tell me who you are. And if you have skills that I might be able to use in the future, I might know somebody. People contact me all the time. I don't even know why. They contact me all the time for referrals, for interns, or they need assistance, or they need somebody to help with this gig. And if I can't help them find that, I feel like a failure. So help us help you.
I'm just going to add one networking thing, because I know people get really freaked out of, I got to network. How's the best way to network? I'm scared to network. You need to remember, when you have a gig, that is networking.
Yes.
Every day you go to work, you're networking. Mm-hmm. Because those people that you are working with that day as a team, they're going to someone's hiring that team again, and they're going to remember, that team I used last week, I want the same team.
Yeah, make it easy for them to hire you. Make it as easy as possible for them to find you, hire you, know that they can give a recommendation to somebody else for you.
And the email, I just have to add, I've never even thought about that, about making sure your email address is your name. Just yesterday, I gave a website to a company for a job, and I gave them the wrong website because the person had their middle initial. I thought it was just so-and-so,
Yeah.
So that's a really great point.
Yeah.
And I am I'm always the oddball out here. I'm the only one in sports up here, but I did do cold calling because I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And we can talk about that, but I knew what I wanted. A lot of people didn't return phone calls, but the one that did gave me a job mixing race day, and my career was off.
Hell
Okay?
yeah.
And then
So
show
it does
up.
work.
Show
Yeah,
up.
show
Be
up.
professional.
I want to mix
dress
race day.
well.
Sounds awesome.
Okay.
Show up on time.
I was
or
that-
early.
Show up early.
I was that weird kid in AES really early on as a student, and I would show up in a blazer and sometimes a pantsuit every day. And I'm really sorry for all of you that knew me at that time. Didn't have a stylist, but you know what? It worked because at the very least, I was super professional, and people knew that if they hired me, I would show up and represent them well, and
They
that
took you
worked for me.
seriously.
They took me seriously because I took myself seriously.
And show initiative. Like when you show up for a job, do more than what's expected. Don't just do the minimum required to get paid because you're never going to get called back. So, like you said, be on time, show up, show initiative, and be persistent. You know, you might have to make 1,000 phone calls before you find that job, but
And
you just
have
keep
a
probably-
good
probably
attitude
will
all
have to.
day.
Yeah, probably will have to.
Yeah, I
make
mean
1,000
anybody
phone
can do
calls.
the job, right? I mean anybody that has fundamental training can do the job. It's what you're going to do that the other guy or girl's not going to do.
Well, I think that they're trying to wrap us up out here. Let us know if we need to wrap up. I know there's a lot of other people that have questions, but maybe you can catch us over here on the side if we need to go. Do we have time for any more questions? It's totally up to you. AES.
There's going to be another crew coming in
Okay.
here within the next
First
5
of all,
minutes.
get well, Leslie Gaston-Bird. We love you.
Thank you guys for your
Thank you
attention.
for tolerating me stepping into her shoes
job.
last
Good job,
minute
Jerry.
and reading through her with my blindness here of her PowerPoint. Love you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.